My name is Asha Federico, and I go to Lakewood High School as a junior, and I'm in Colorado.
We've been working together for a while, and I want to thank you in advance for doing this. As I said before, it's no secret that I love working with you. And we're going to just jump right in because there's so many things to talk about today. I want to start with kind of my impression that you are in some ways like your brother, although you're very, very different people. You're a Renaissance woman, are an athlete scholar, you're a musician. Why don't we start with your sport? Even in the Winter Olympics and the Summer Olympics. What's your sport?
Soccer.
And how long have you been playing?
Since I was 5, I think.
And you play at your school. Are you playing varsity?
JV right now.
And what position do you play on the team?
I play right wing.
What do you love most about playing right wing?
Well, I am right-footed, so that helps. Because my coach, like long back, used to put me in left wing because I'm left-handed. So then I finally switched to right wing.
Yeah, we've talked about that, the left foot, right footed. And strategically, you like being on that side too. And would you consider yourself like a very competitive player?
Not very competitive.
Not out there. So you're not like going for blood out there on the field.
No.
But you do love to play. And you live in Colorado, so you live in ski country. Are you also a skier?
Yeah.
What do you like skiing wise? Are you competitive downhill? Do you race? What kind of stuff do you do when it comes to skiing?
Like big mountain skiing, so like the double black terrain.
You're a killer skier. You're good. Good. Cool. Let's switch gears for a second. You're also a musician, yes? And
Yeah.
you play. Can you talk about the instruments that you play? How long you've been playing them and the kind of music that you play and like to play?
So I play viola for the school orchestra, and I've been doing that since 3rd grade.
And do you also play piano as well, or am I
Yeah.
mistaken? Okay. And the school orchestra, it's a pretty great school orchestra. How many pieces are in it?
Yeah, so it's the only school in my district with 3 different orchestras. So there's the non-audition one, and then there's the middle one that you have to audition for, which I'm in,
Right.
and in the top one, which is also audition.
Wasn't there a famous musician who came in and you played with, or was it a conductor? What was that?
Yeah, last winter we played with Mark Wood, and it was really different music. Normally we play kind of like classic, but it was just a different style.
And I remember you were talking about it, and you didn't seem nervous about it, but it was a pretty complicated thing, right? How many people on stage?
It was probably like 100.
That's a lot. That is
Yeah.
a lot. That is a lot of musicians on stage. What was your experience as a musician in this performance?
I really liked it. You could definitely, there were some people who were like more into it than others, but I really liked it.
Awesome. You are hard of hearing, is that correct?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that one?
Since I've been living with it my whole life, it seems normal to me, and I don't notice any differences. But there was this one girl in my class who's also hard of hearing, and she would always cover her ears with her hair, and she didn't want to use her 504 plan. So, yeah.
What's a 504 plan?
It's just like accommodations for my hearing impairment. So like you give a microphone to the teacher and like closed captioning during videos and stuff like that.
So it's accommodation programs for students who are hard of hearing in school. A little bit about music and how it's my impression that your being hard of hearing hasn't been an impediment always, but actually it's kind of a superpower also. It's got sort of 2 sides to it.
Yeah. Well, like certain things, like when listening to music, I'm not able to really capture the lyrics very well. So I mean, I don't really know the lyric to any songs. I just kind of listen to them subconsciously, like while doing homework. And then as far as playing, I don't notice any differences or any obstacles that brings up.
Are there any differences between viola and piano when it comes to that? Are there any differences in terms of you being hard of hearing in the way that you play or the way that you approach the instrument?
I guess like with piano, you don't have to make sure that your notes are in tune. You just know where the key is at and you play it. But with viola, you do have to pay a little more attention to make sure your finger's in the right place and to make sure that all your notes are in tune.
That's very interesting. You've also talked about how that impacts and how that shows up for you as a soccer player and how that shows up on the field and how your interactions with your teammates.
Yeah, it's like tough with soccer because sometimes there's this one game we had and it was pouring rain and then my hearing aids got wet and they shut off. Soccer is a team sport and you definitely need to communicate with your teammates. I mean, you can still communicate with them kind of by reading body language.
You've been playing with this team. You've been playing with some of the women on this team for a long time. So have there any signals that you developed or is that just kind of body language? reads, or is it just kind of a vibe that you developed with your teammates?
It's just like mostly like staying with my left wing partner, just like staying in line with them.
I think it was our very first session together, and you talked about this business that you had just started. What's the name of the business?
Okay, so the brand is Superhearos. What I do is make charms that can attach to the tubing of hearing aids just as like a little accessory. It kind of looks like an earring. And I mean, it just started, I've been beading since I was 5. And so that's kind of where it came from. It's superhear-os.com. So I do a lot of bracelets. Just buy beads from like Michael's, plastic beads, and string them onto elastic. And for the superheroes, I make them in like an earring kind of shape. So with a wire, and then you string on the beads, and then you attach a jump ring to the end.
This is cool. It started off as an idea, and then when we got going, your dad Jerry and you together purchased the domain for Superheroes, and you built a website. I believe you built it with your mom. Did you build it
Yeah.
with your mom, Vina?
So at first I was just making them to donate to Children's Hospital. So I was just kind of making them with the beads we had. I wasn't paying too much attention to like colors and theming. And then once I realized that we might actually turn this into more of a business as well, I started going for themes a little bit. I have a fruit collection with like watermelons, and lemons, and limes. And then I have like a more classy collection, which is more traditional, like black and white colors.
What other collections have you put together or are you considering putting together? You make a lot of different things, but bracelets are one of the things that you make. And the last time you and I met, you talked about, can you talk a little bit about that? And is there any kind of cross-pollination between the themes you've created for bracelets and the themes that you've kind of come up with for superheroes?
Yeah, cross between them because it's more to do with the color scheme. So, like for a beachy theme, I do like light blues and kind of sandy browns and whites. I mean, that can definitely be made into a superhero as well.
It's incredible what your thoughts were when you actually created that brand.
Well, the name came from when I was little, I called my hearing aids my heroes. And I mean, that name has stuck ever since. So that's kind of how the name came. And my goal is just to reduce any negative stereotypes surrounding hearing loss because not everyone's super confident about it. And there's no reason not to be.
It's a beautiful thought. And this is something we've talked about a little bit, but I'm curious because we haven't gone into a lot of depth about it. You talked about not everybody's confident about it. And your primary audience right now is teenagers or is it adults as well?
Mostly younger kids.
When you talk about negative stereotypes, are there negative stereotypes both within the hard of hearing community as well as outside? Like there's discomfort among young people who are hard of hearing as well as misunderstanding outside the community. Can you talk a little bit about that dynamic going on? Because you've been a very strong advocate both with this business and from the time you first started calling them your heroes.
Honestly, I think it's more like with the community. I don't know if it's negative stereotypes, just a lack of confidence in being hearing impaired and having something different than everyone else. Like when I was younger, kids would always ask me, like, what are those things in your ears? Which I guess could be an uncomfortable question for some people, but whenever I told people that they're my hearing aids, they were like, oh my God, that's super cool. It's like you have a superpower.
Creating these very, very special, you're calling them charms, but it seems to me, and maybe this is just my impression, Asha, that they're more than just accessories, as they're being not just something that's unique and beautiful in and of themselves, but as something that sets them apart and maybe helps break those stereotypes. Can you talk a little bit about whether it was by intention or by accident? Because this is moving in a really incredibly different direction.
My intention is to just make kids feel more confident about having hearing loss, and superheroes just gives them something to accessorize with, which kids will love in any case, whether they're accessorizing like a doll or hearing aids. And when I went to the Rocky Mountain Deaf Festival and sold some of my superheroes there's this one girl who never wore her cochlear implant, but then she bought this little rose charm and she was so excited to put it on. And she was saying that now she's going to wear her cochlear every day. I really just hope that kids feel more confident wearing their hearing aids because they shouldn't have to not be able to hear just because they're not confident.
What a beautiful way of expressing it and starting a business at the same time. And we've talked about, I don't know that we've gotten there yet. I think it was your idea, or maybe it was kind of a co-created idea, which is one of the beautiful things we've talked about in a mentorship relationship, starting a 501c3, starting a not-for-profit so that you can, as this becomes a profitable business, which it's right on the verge of becoming, give something back to the community in one form or another. We've had a couple of conversations about that, one with your dad, one with your your mom?
We did definitely discuss it multiple times. We haven't taken initiative on it.
But is it something you're interested as we move forward this year?
Yeah,
You're doing
definitely.
your talk about the website and how you created it. You created it with your mom. What was the actual process of doing it? You went from the domain to a full-blown website. Did you sit down with your mom and just do that over the weekend? What was the actual process of creating that?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty quick. We already had a little bio about me that I'd been giving to Children's Hospital. So I just copied and pasted that. And then all we had to do mostly was just take pictures of the superheroes. And yeah, that's it.
It was pretty quick. It went up. We've been talking about it for a while, and I believe we had a meeting with me and you and your amazing mom, and that just went up. And it was photographs of these incredible charms, which hopefully we'll have some photographs of. And I think after this, you came up with the idea of naming the charms because they come in different colors. But I think you came up with the idea of giving them names and a collection, and maybe because they come in little bags, right? Now, little plastic bags and maybe in the bag having a little board or paper insert that told a little story about those charms.
I think it would be super cool, and the kids would love to be able to read a little story about their charm before they put it on, or if it's part of a collection, they'll be eager to get every other charm in the collection. And yeah, right now we have just basic names for the collections, but not for the specific charms. I have a Disney collection, and then we have a bunch of roses, but of all different colors. So we have for the shades of red, it's like the rosy reds. And then for the shades of blue, it's like the cool blues or something.
It's amazing. And my recollection is that you've come up with the names of these collections, but you've also gotten feedback. You've gotten input. I think it was at the fair. It was amazing. It was great. You were holding up the Superheroes sign and it had a number of the charms on it, and then the charms were laid out at the table.
Yeah.
You had some discussions with some of your existing customers and some new customers where they were giving you some of their own ideas for new charms. So there was this feedback loop, which is a brilliant, brilliant thing.
Well, they didn't give me feedback on the charms themselves, but they gave me feedback on better instructions on like how to put on the charms.
What was the nature of the feedback?
We had an example out of a hearing aid with the charm on it, but every time people came by, they seemed confused as to what it was exactly. So they suggested that we needed more explanation as to what the charm was, and that it was like basically an earring for your hearing.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then you and I in one of our sessions, I was just kind of along for the ride, did a little exploration into who else was in the market for other people who are doing these. What did you come up with?
There's this one other girl named Haley, and she does the same thing. She makes hearing aid charms and cochlear implant charms.
Right. I think she's in college. She's somewhere in her 20s, right?
I think so.
So in this industry, in this cottage industry, it's you and it's Haley, and that's it.
Yeah.
And there are, I don't know the number. What would you estimate the number just in the United States of hard of hearing teenagers?
I have no idea.
But a lot, right? I mean, a lot.
Yeah.
Certainly in the United States and certainly worldwide. Have you had inquiries from people who aren't hard of hearing saying that's so cool? I'd like to be able to wear that charm, even though I'm not hard of hearing? Or
yeah, so I've had some inquiries from a few people at craft fairs I've gone to who are not hard of hearing, and they just like the look of the charm because it's basically an earring just without the clasp. So then I thought that why not just make the hearing aid charms into earrings for customers if they want that too.
It's not almost as if it is that you're creating this culture around something that started as a kid where these became your heroes. You're raising awareness around the hard of hearing community and the stigmas around that, both within the community and outside the community. So it's not just the art, it's not just the object, it's this movement that you're creating. And this is showing up in other things that you do as well.
I think it's just a movement of self-confidence because, of course, if you're hard of hearing, these might encourage you to wear your hearing aids more. But even if you're not, jewelry is a way to express yourself and your own style.
Beautifully said. And this was your first entrepreneurial venture, was it not?
Yeah, it was.
Was it a little scary going out and doing fairs and creating your first website and naming these and selling these?
I mean, it was pretty.
I want to talk about how this entrepreneurial spirit this momentum that you started building moved into another area of your life, which is writing?
Yeah, I like writing. English has always been my favorite subject in school. I don't do much writing outside of what we do for school, but I still do enjoy like literary analysis and finding the deeper meaning behind texts.
At the same time, you're a very well traveled young woman, and your family is very well traveled. And we talked about your journey to Africa, to Kenya, I believe it was, a year or two ago. And you published an article shortly after you came home, or maybe a few months after you came home.
So while we were in Kenya, my parents went to volunteer at a hospital, and then my brother and I went to do various things around the community. But one of the things we did was build a mud hut for a man without a home. And then we also built dozens of wheelchairs and gave them to children in a school.
You fabricated the wheelchairs from materials that were there.
We got them from some hospital, so we just had to put them together.
So you and your brother were building wheelchairs and building a home for a man who had lost his home. Yes,
Yeah.
this was a mud hut. And
so my mom had apparently been in contact with Hands and Voices, and she is friends with the head of Hands and Voices on Facebook, and she saw all of her posts about Africa, and she asked me to write a little something about it. And it was pretty soon after we got home, and the deadline was like super quick. So I honestly just wrote it in 15, 20 minutes, and that was it. That's what got sent in. It was pretty simple, just the journey of going to the mud hut and then like throwing mud onto the structure and then eating dinner with the whole village afterwards, some chai, and then we went to a church for dinner.
That's a beautiful thing. Hands and Voices, can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, it's an organization for deaf and hard of hearing people, and it has a few different locations around the globe.
Okay, so you had an entree through your mom, and both your parents are physicians, is that correct?
Yeah.
But you were tasked with writing this article because it had a due date of a few hours or the next day.
Yeah.
And you knocked this article out. I think it had a photograph as well. And what was the title of the art? Do you remember?
I don't think I titled it.
Can you talk about what went through your mind in writing that in 15 minutes to the degree that you can remember it?
Yeah. It was just the chronological order of the day I built the mud hut.
And what was it like for you to see your first piece in print?
It was pretty cool. Well, there's definitely pride, and then there's also like disbelief. Like, is my writing like really published? And then I send it to some friends.
Yeah, it was a cool celebration. And that's led to some other interesting things along the way. And I want to get into your most recent related venture, which is your workshop.
I created my first workshop, and it was called Asha's Art Academy. And I guess first it started as an idea of just brainstorming certain things that I like and that could possibly teach to others. So there's like art and soccer and writing and piano. And I eventually landed on art. And yeah.
What was the process that you went through in narrowing down those four things that you're super passionate about so that you landed on art?
I wasn't sure about piano because I really enjoy playing it, but I wasn't sure like how to teach it to other kids, especially like with art, there aren't as many rules, but piano, you do have to know certain things like how to read music and where the notes are on the keyboard. And then I guess between art and soccer, I was just more passionate about art.
Now, you're also an artist. We've talked about the art that you create with beading and crafting, which is something you and your mom have been doing for a long time, right?
Yeah.
But you're also a painter, you draw. When did you start painting and when did you start arting?
I started painting like third grade, maybe.
And when you first started painting, what was your medium?
Acrylics is what I did.
And why acrylics?
Well, at that age, it's much easier to deal with than oil.
Got it. You decided that you were going to create the Asha's Art Academy, which has that alliterative, just beautiful quality to it. And then you worked to create, market, mentor, monetize this thing, right? You knew you wanted to make some money out of it, but this was your first time doing it.
So to advertise, I created a brochure that was, my mom posted it on her face, and it was just a basic explanation of who I am, and then the what I would try to do in Asha's Art Academy and what kind of mediums we would deal with. It was 3 days. So the first run was intended to be a landscape edition, just acrylic painting on a canvas. So we did that on the first day. Within the first hour, I just had to improvise and kind of switch to something else. I did have a few projects lined up, and so we also did painting on wooden trays and then decorating them with resin, and we also did decoupage on a wooden arrow and tea light holders. So it was 3 5 hours days. So I had like a bunch of different acrylic paints. It was like 42 or something. And then also water cups to wash the paintbrushes, a whole bucket of paintbrushes, and artist palettes.
So this was ready to go. They just had to show up and everything was ready to roll.
Yeah,
And
I already said it.
and so what was intended to be a 3-day event, pretty much the promise got fulfilled within the first hour of the event. Because early on in our work together, we talked about the importance of improvising, right? Just being able to improvise no matter what comes your way. Again, you had no fear. You were like, okay, great. We wrap this up 3 days in 1 hour, and then you just leaned into some other things. Did you have these things really ready to go? Or did you just say, great, this is done?
I just had some ideas in the back of my mind of other projects. Once they finished within the first hour, their paintings, I asked them what they wanted to do and if like they wanted to do another painting or a different sort of medium, and they still wanted to do some painting. So that's when I grabbed the wooden trays because it would still be painting in some way, but with the added element of the resin.
How many kids was it in your first workshop?
It was 3 kids.
And how would you describe the quality of the work that they did?
The youngest one took a more abstract path. And then the 2 older ones definitely put a lot of time into it. And I was actually really impressed with their work.
You were sending me photos of their work along the way, and it was pretty astonishing. How old were the kids?
9, 11, and 13.
Okay. And this also became a bit of an event. This was over the course of the summer. This was during the summer, in the month of July, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So 3 5-hour days. What did you charge per kid per day, by the way?
I charged dollars per kid per day.
So what did that total up to over the course of 3 days?
$450.
It must have been very satisfying. Talk a little bit about that feeling of earning that, doing something that you really love.
Yeah, that was the first time I'd gotten a check for that much money and for actually doing something of my own.
It was incredibly, incredibly satisfying. And during the event, there was some downtime, right? So you turned this into, calling it a summer camp is the wrong word, but you had things that you did in between, right? It wasn't just painting and creating art. What did you do during the downtime?
So we normally did 2 projects a day, and then in between each project, we would go outside and play. We played rope toss, and on the second day, we played Scrabble.
Would you say, tell us what this felt like? This was going to be an event anyway, but this sounds like it unpacked into an event that was not just an Asha's Art Academy, but it's like a summer camp, like a destination vacation.
It just felt like I was hanging out with friends. It was a really casual environment. It didn't feel like I was this mentor and they were my mentees. I felt like we were all doing art together. Yeah, so the first day I had to do some demonstrations because we worked with paracord. So I had to demonstrate how to weave the chords together. So I was doing the same projects as them. But then the second day, I was kind of just working on my own project.
Something special happened the final day.
Third and final day, something great happened when the kid's dad came to pick them up. So we were in the dining room doing art, and then they heard the doorbell ring, and they like yelled at me not to get it yet because they went to go hide on the deck. And so then the dad walked in and he's like, "Where are my kids?" And yeah, so then they were hiding on the deck, and he was like, "It's a good sign that they don't want to leave." And then the youngest kid, he gave me a hug when he left.
Absolutely lovely. And you had a graduation ceremony as well. Did you create a certificate?
So on the last day, in the last few minutes, I gave the kids each a certificate that I created and a gift bag with a few art supplies in it and with their name on it. They got to decorate the gift bags.
The ambulance took a by here. Yeah, it was a really beautiful experience.
When I run another workshop, I'm going to stick with painting, with acrylic painting, but a different edition of it. Maybe focus on portraits or abstract art.
And also, can you talk about that these were your founding members and that they came in at a special price and that subsequent groups are going to be coming in at a higher price, and how you express this to the kids and to the moms?
So for my first workshop, these 3 kids were my founding members, and I gave them the special price of $50 each. Yeah, but for future members, I'll probably charge more.
Cool. And then you and I talked about afterwards, since it had been what was essentially a vacation in which they did art and they did events and they left with very tangible results.
I've been thinking about doing a version of Asha's Art Academy, but for moms, and it'd be at a higher price. It would probably be acrylic painting, and I think it would be definitely a different dynamic to have like me being the boss of them.
Cool. That's it's so wonderful. So you've over the course of the last 4 months just rocketed through an awful lot of things, both as a writer, as an artist, as an athlete, scholar. What are the 3 pieces of advice you would offer young people who have entrepreneurial dreams or ideas but don't know how to get started? Because you've made these amazing, amazing strides and tangible results. You got your first $500 in your pocket and a lot more to come.
I would say that everything starts as an idea in your head, and it's not always a quick process, so don't get discouraged if you're like struggling to make the idea in your head tangible thing.